Hi everyone, I'm Heather Schwartz.
And I'm Scott Powell, and we're the creators of the Knowable World K-2 homeschool history curriculum. Our mission is to be the best place to go to help your child make sense of the world they live in.
In this presentation, we're going to introduce ourselves and the story of how we started building Knowable World. We're going to tell you about our approach to social studies and history for children and how it's different from some of the popular approaches that are out there. And I'm going to give you some tips for using the curriculum so that your child can get the most out of it.
As a quick background, for those of you who don't know us at all, I'm a historian and history teacher at History at Our House, and the author of so far two books about history, The History of Now and The 4-Hour Historian.
I'm a homeschool parent and I also coach parents who are transitioning to homeschool. I actually first got involved in homeschooling way back in 2010 when I spent a year working with Scott in his classes for homeschoolers and learning history from him in his adult classes. I'd come from a background where I wasn't very satisfied with my education, but I didn't know how it could be different. Once I found out about homeschooling, I thought, well, that's great. This is a way that I can give my kids a better education than I received. And I was excited to do something better for myself and my kids, and history was a big part of that. But when my kids reached school age, I was really disappointed with what I found for history. I found that, first of all, there weren't very many high quality programs for this age group. The best advice seemed to be to not use a curriculum at all, but just to read books, historical fiction and nonfiction picture books, and not worry about a curriculum. And that wasn't a very satisfying alternative for me. I wanted a structured approach, but I couldn't find what I wanted anywhere. Eventually, my son moved up into Scott's History at Our House elementary class, and I wanted to see, based on my experience with him, what I could do for my daughter, who's 3 years younger. What can I be teaching her now so that she's ready to get the most out of this class? So, for me, the idea for Knowable World came from not being able to find a curriculum I liked for teaching history at the K-2 level, and wanting to build a bridge for my kids that would take them into being really ready for history at our house. So, I went to Scott with that idea earlier this year.
Right. And the appeal for me was immediate because as a history teacher and working with kids from approximately second grade on up, it's clear to me that the students who have an opportunity to begin learning history earlier are the ones that have the best chance to succeed. I've been teaching history online for nearly 20 years, and I've taught kids all the way from start to finish. I have had some students start in what I call my lower elementary program and go all the way through to graduate from high school. And I can tell you proudly that these are the students that the professors in our modern colleges marvel at. The professors ask them, "How do you know this?" They don't understand how a high school graduate can be so well equipped with historical knowledge. That's not an outcome you can achieve by the rote memorization of a 1,000-page textbook. That's an outcome that comes from real learning, started early and reinforced over time through repeated exposure. Children have questions from a young age that history can answer. And if we don't provide them early enough, there's a void there, which can't be filled by force feeding history later. The vast majority of us have the experience of history being detached from real life. And a couple years at the end of high school is not all of a sudden going to render the subject into the compelling one it can be. In my experience, a conviction that history matters is one that takes time to develop. It takes time to develop what I like to call the history habit. So, when Heather and I started planning this out, we talked about the mainstream approach and how typically, because of the experience that adults have had with history as a dry academic subject that involves a lot of rote memorization and so on, there's been pushback in the educational sphere when it comes to the subject of history. The move to social studies did not fix this problem, however. So homeschoolers have tried to use what we might call a literary approach. What works about that, assuming the stories are well told, is that those stories tend to be better than the dry facts. But the problem is, to put it bluntly, history is not literature, and literature is not history. These are two separate subjects. They have different purposes. Literature is a form of art. History is a social science that provides insight and instruction. Literature shows us a world of imagination. History reveals and explains the world we actually live in. There is no substitute for that when it's done properly. I define history as the revelation and explanation of the world we live in. It's not the past apart from the present, and it's not the present apart from the past. It's the integration of the two. That's when it's really compelling, when the connection is made. Of course, with younger kids, our role is to emphasize topics that help them to see more, to look more deeply at the world around us, and to marvel at some of the things that we usually take for granted, but which are in fact quite amazing. The goal is inspiration and preparation for later studies.
One of the things that I really wanted to do with this curriculum is to find a way to give parents what they need to help their kids connect to the subject of history. I didn't want it to be just YouTube videos, I wanted it to be a curriculum. So the activities and the extension activities are meant to help the parents fill the gap between the content of the videos and the actual things that are happening in the kids' lives. So to do that, first of all, you're going to want to watch the videos along with your child. I think that's really important because that helps you to know what's being talked about so that you can make connections between the lessons and what's happening in day-to-day life. And then, depending on the child's interest, you can follow up with the additional materials and activities that we provide. It's meant to be a flexible program that can be used however you need it to be used, based on your schedule, your students' learning and interests, and the opportunities available in your local area. And what's really important for us as we're developing this is to hear from the parents. We also want to be responsive to your needs. Development will be ongoing for some time, and even the lessons that we've already created will be revised. Don't worry, when you purchase a level, you have lifetime access to everything we add or update in that level in the future. The more we can hear from parents who are using the program along the way, the better we can make it. Our goal is to create a solid foundation for your child to move on to history at our house or to any other history program. As Scott said, our goal is to inspire and to prepare.
Thanks for watching. I hope you'll join us in making Knowable World the best place for your child to learn about the world they live in.